Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Friday, the 5th of September. Welcome to the weekend. We've got a cold front on the way. It's already moving up some parts of the South Island, moves into the North Island on Saturday, so by Sunday, the whole country feels the temperature drop. But in true spring weather style, next week, the windy westerlies come back and the temperatures, they bounce back up again before they drop once more. Let's have a look and see what is happening on the satellite map. Gee, a lot of thunderstorms on the west coast. They've had a whole week of thunderstorms, but this morning, certainly a lot of them in the central area, moving up in towards the northwest. Further northwards though, dry weather, a lot of cloud coming through, so overcast conditions, sun just breaking through here and there, and we've got some high cloud popping up over in the east. But most of the energy, as you can certainly see, is over on the west coast with those thundery downpours, and that's slowly moving northwards. At the same time, it's falling apart. On the air pressure map, you can see why that cold front is falling apart, because as it moves up the west coast and detaches from all the low pressure that's generating it, it runs into high pressure. So the high pressure system covers northern New Zealand and a subtropical airflow coming through, a very weak low near New Caledonia, nothing to worry about for us. We've got the main southerly change coming through now, the same one that just went into Australia. So here we are tonight, the cold front moving up the South Island, slowly moving with those thunderstorms. So they're off and on for much of the day over on the western side. A wee bit of spillover into the east. Otherwise, windy nor'westers will gradually turn around to a colder southerly. It might be more southwest for some areas. The North Island, though, fairly mild tonight in comparison to the South Island, with the northwesterly winds continuing. And in fact, for some of you in the very top of the country, they are still subtropical. Noon Saturday, so the cold front moves into the North Island, but like I say, it is running into this high pressure zone to our northeast. So the wet weather comes up and it slows down and it falls apart, and we've got that other area of low pressure just to the north of the country generating some heavier rain there. So we might see some isolated downpours that get triggered as that front moves through in the morning. During the afternoon, the southerly change comes through. We've got colder southerlies moving all up the South Island and into the lower North Island. And obviously, the polar airflow is heading northwards. So windy weather comes in again overnight Saturday into Sunday. This is when the coldest of the airflow arrives for the South Island. So keep that in mind. Windy weather, coldest weather, and some showers around. Not good for the lambing and calving season, which is just starting. Windy weather coming through in the purple around Stewart Island, Fovo Strait. Those are the areas getting up to around 100 kilometres an hour. You see some of those gusts around the mountains as well. But many of the plains and more populated areas aren't looking quite so intense. By lunchtime Sunday, the polar airflow's gone right up to the Auckland region, Bay of Plenty, Coromandel sort of area as we go through the day. So the showers are mostly on the western side of the North Island and down around Wellington and Waited Upper, because southerly winds will be coming through there. Southwesterly winds or westerlies for many other parts of the North Island. In the South Island, it's a southwesterly flow, not overly wet for places like Central Otago, South Canterbury, and the wet weather on the west coast. All those thunderstorms, they finally clear away. But Sunday's a cold day, and that means a cold night on the way as well, as some of those winds start to ease. High pressure is quite close to us. So by Monday, that high drifts in, the anticyclone does, pushing out right over towards the Chatham Islands. Not quite there, still southwesterlies and colder weather for the Chathams. But in the South Island, cold morning means frosty stuff around, and then into the afternoon, the windy westerlies return. They may not be overly windy, but they'll lift up the temperatures again for you. And in the North Island, southerly winds are fading out. The usual high pressure system rolling in after a cold change, so lighter winds, drier skies, colder nights are starting to return again. We'll also see some frosty weather coming back in around some parts of the North Island potentially going into Monday because of lighter winds, clearer skies, and the polar air that's still stuck around the lower half and even the eastern side, although the northeastern corner still has a few showers. Let's go to Tuesday. So that low in the north is pretty big. As we mentioned the other day, quite a sizable storm, but it is surrounded by high pressure, and this other one in the Tasman Sea is joining forces with the one that's closer to the Chatham Islands, and it kind of links up over the lower part of the North Island. That's where you'll get those nor'westers returning through Cook Strait, around Wellington, southern Waited Upper. And as you go down through Canterbury, Otago and into Southland, the windy weather returns, with some areas getting up to gale force throughout the mountains and ranges, the usual kind of windy stuff that we get at this time of the year, and more rain returns to the west coast. For now, as we've seen every day this week, that low looks to remain offshore from us. It might drive in some bigger swells though if you're a surfer. More windy weather is certainly coming through next week. So this is 9 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. This could still change. This is too far out to completely lock in with precision. But these are very strong winds through the mountains. Now, they'll fade out pretty quickly after they go through the foothills, but you're talking about 130 or 140 kilometre an hour winds there, and 100 to 110 around the lower North Island. So windy spring weather comes back on Wednesday. Temperatures go up. It's not going to be as cold with the northwesterly flow around. You can see it here better on the bigger picture. So high pressure to the north of the country is dragging an airflow from around Queensland into the top of the North Island. So windy weather, but not overly cold and fairly dry as well. The showers develop more and more the further down the west coast you go. Heavier falls there where you could be getting thunderstorms once more as the next cold front comes in. You can see the southerly off the Southern Ocean straight on into Southland. That means your temperatures start to drop again after having a warmer Tuesday and even warmer Wednesday morning, but it changes probably around late morning going into the afternoon. Of course, timing this far out is always very tricky. Thursday of next week, more low pressure out on the Tasman Sea. So that means warm nor'westers for the North Island, especially in the eastern side. Some heavy downpours around central New Zealand, top of the South Island, lower part of the North Island. Might get a few thunderstorms in there. Again, too far out to lock in. But when you've got cold air at the bottom part of the country, warm air at the top part, in the middle would be the obvious place to see a few thunderstorms. And more windy weather as we go into midnight next Thursday. The potential for damaging gusts from the northwest. Once more, it's the eastern side of the North Island, maybe also around the mountains of the northeastern corner of the South Island. But along the whole eastern side of the North Island, windy, and of course off the Tasman Sea as well, blustery. Not necessarily problematic, but windy weather is certainly covering northern New Zealand and central New Zealand about a week from now. And next Friday, that is the next cold southerly moving upwards, moving northwards towards the top of the country. Showers, maybe a couple of heavy falls in there, but really messy weather for the next week ahead. It's kind of classic spring because you're getting these bursts of still winter weather and then these warmer nor'west days, which keeps some areas in the east fairly mild and dry. So let's have a look at the rainfall. Here's the next 7-day animation. Check out all that rain falling on the west coast. You'll see it piling up as those fronts start to come on through. Northern areas get showers passing through, obviously with that front coming through into the weekend. So when you add it all up, parts of the west coast there, off the scale with 300 millimetres plus coming up. So that's a fair bit of rain falling over there. But the downside, the one area that needs it the most, Hawke's Bay, especially around sort of Napier to Hastings, southwards along the coastline as well, and a little bit inland. That's the driest part of the country coming up. So that dry area around Hawke's Bay will not get better in the next week or two. So fingers crossed we can get ourselves a low pressure zone at some point to drive in some rain there before we dry out even further with those spring westerlies. That's all from me for this week. Have yourselves a great weekend. Happy Father's Day on Sunday. Happy Father's Day to my dad. And I'll see you again on Monday.